exhaust from the vehicles and everything. So that's my only concern
Well,
with that
I
location.
will. So that was actually that was a staff concern. Was the air quality.
Yeah.
So we went into pretty intensive air quality reviews. So
Okay.
there's a air quality review station here in Royal Palm Beach on Lamstein Lane. It goes out about 2.5 miles. We're about a mile and 1.8 miles from that location. But staff was still concerned with it. So actually, the client has already bought the property. Went out and bought an air quality monitor, and we've been monitoring those ever since we bought it. We've submitted those to staff, and they're incredibly low to all
On
the
that,
standards.
okay.
So
'Cause,
all
yeah.
all very good and good air quality standards all the way through. So
Okay.
they do have that as part of staff. I have it in my presentation if you really want to get granular, but it's a bunch of Excel spreadsheets of air quality.
No,
That-
and it's just that
that's
that is a
okay.
concern when they're on that side of the street then too.
So they're going to continue to monitor it. The children are only out there an hour at a time, so they're not spending a bunch of time out there. We committed to that, and happy to add it as a condition of approval that they will continue to
Monitor
monitor that. Yeah, it's part of their overall business program. So.
Thank you. And then you're leaving the existing foliage that's there because there are the mature trees, or are you adding more
No, we're
to
adding
the
more.
fence?
We're
You
adding
are?
more foliage.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
So one of the things that typically is a challenge is the dropping off and picking up of kids. And looks like there's plenty of stacking area there. Did you all take a very close look at that? That is usually a concern.
Having just gone through the whole childhood drop off at daycare for two of my young children, this doesn't. This facility has much more traffic circulation where they'll pull in, circulate around, and then exit, along with parking. Excuse me, adequate number of parking spaces.
So it's got a built-in serpentine kind of a
Right.
kind of thing, which
Absolutely.
was
Yes,
a function of the
absolutely.
previous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Plus,
Okay.
I'm assuming then you have half day and full day, so you're dividing up your 240 students by two different pickup and drop off times.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And 28 spaces were required. 29 spaces were required. We have 38 spaces.
Okay.
Additional 9 on here. So overparked, and I think circulation worked very well. Also got sign off from the fire department. So in terms of getting emergency vehicles there. So staff was very thorough.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, and I imagine that you're going to go full days, so you're going to have a smattering of pickup and drop off and not
Yeah.
necessarily a set time, right?
Yeah, it's very different than schools
Right.
with that set time. I mean, people start from 7 and go to 11. So a lot of retail people are not starting till that that 10 o'clock hour. So it varies all day long. You don't get that
Service.
push like you do at a school. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question, but I don't know if this is the right time to ask. The internal configuration, will we see that later? I'm curious about bathrooms for 240 kids, and an old CVS, it probably has 2 stalls.
It does. We did submit floor plans. It has a bathroom in each room, in each classroom on there. So they are adding quite a few bathrooms within there. It's not part of our application, but they are providing those. Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Thank
Good.
you.
Yes.
Good question, Jack. Any other questions, comments? No? If
And
there are no
Mr. Mayor,
further, go ahead.
just one clarification. If the maker of any motion could include the condition as stated by staff.
I was gonna-
Because
yeah, I
the
was gonna say
backup
that.
doesn't include the revised condition, so.
And along those same lines then, because we talked about the air quality where they would have to continue to submit that. Is that part of your? Do we need to put that in there, or is
That
that
would
just
need
part of
to-
your business plan?
No, he's.
That
he
would need to
said
be a
he-
condition.
he
That's
would
not
accept
in the
that as a
backup.
Condition of approval, right? That's what I heard you say?
It's not in the current ones, but we're
But you would
happy
accept
to
that.
agree
Okay.
to have it added. Yes,
So,
we're doing it now.
if,
Yeah.
if there's no further comments or questions, with those additions, conditions of approvals, I look for a motion that includes that.
I'll make a motion to approve regular agenda item number 8 with the 2 conditions of signage as well as air quality.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no opposed. Diane, let the record show that the agenda item R8 was approved 5-0.
Thank you.
What's your timeline for operation?
Well, they're ready to submit for building permits, so as soon as they can get that done, they've already closed on the property, so they're excited to get income going on as well.
Do you already have candidates lined up, parents lined up already?
Oh yeah, there's already waiting lists.
That's what
Absolutely.
I thought. Yeah, I guess it's a needed service.
Also, wanted to let you know, you may have heard from Ray and already, but that the school over there is moving forward. It's going to change hands, and so we're going to get that school going over at off the State Road 7. So there's another thing coming. Yeah.
Oh, you're
Good
involved?
things.
That's okay. Yeah, I heard about that. I got some
Yeah.
update on that today. Okay.
Yeah, so that's
We'll
coming
be
in for
seeing you.
a minor amendment. Yeah,
Can I
absolutely.
ask one quick question about
Go
that?
ahead.
Is it still K through 12?
I
Yeah,
I
okay.
think, yeah,
That was my
yeah,
question
yeah.
about it. Thank you.
But it's now K through 12. Okay. They'll build. Yeah.
Matriculate.
Right.
Matriculate up. Yep. All right.
Okay.
Great seeing you. Thank you.
All right. Take care. All right. Next item is agenda item R9. It was the public hearing to consider landscape waiver application number 22-70 and approval of order LW-23-04, an applicant by Centerpoint Integrated Solutions for consideration of two landscape waivers as follows. A waiver from section 15-133 sub D to eliminate the single terminal islands, and B, a waiver from section 15-133 sub E to eliminate the boulevard. To eliminate, I'm sorry, I misread that. To eliminate double terminal islands for a property located on 10501 Southern Boulevard. That's the boulevard. And this is a quasi-judicial item.
Thank
You
you.
guys have been here for this whole
Can
thing.
you all state your names, whoever's going to speak, and I'll swear you all in at once. State your names for the record.
Christina Belenky.
Thank you.
Brian Pulsifer. John Thatcher. Jason Weber.
And Trisha Richter.
Thank you. Can you all raise your right hands for me? Thank you. Do you all swear from to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Thank you. And I'll turn back to council for ex parte disclosures.
Staff.
I attended that planning and zoning meeting on August 14th.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Traffic, you're up.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. The applicant is requesting two landscape waivers from section 15133D to eliminate the single terminal islands and to allow for planting of the required plantings in adjacent landscape areas where village code requires single terminal islands at the beginning and end of each parking row containing the required landscaping, and from section 15133E to eliminate the double terminal islands and allow for planting of the required plantings in adjacent landscape areas. For a property located at 10501 Southern Boulevard, the applicant is proposing a 2.6 acre paved parking area that will serve as storage for vehicles. This area will be void of striping and terminal landscape islands. This slide is of the site plan provided by the applicant to show where the landscaping will be removed within the 2.6 acre asphalt vehicle storage area. They will be removing them from these areas and these areas here that have the cross hatches to these areas that have just the hatch. They will be removing them from these areas and relocating to the hashed areas in the outer boundaries. This slide also shows what the site would look like if the applicant provided both the terminal islands and striping within the area. Also on the slide is the previously approved vehicle storage area and staging area to the east that has already been constructed, which contains the terminal islands and striping. This slide shows the area without the 2.6 acre paved area, without the striping and terminal islands, and is highlighted in green. The applicant contends this request, as well as the overall project, is unique with respect to its location within the village. The landscape waivers are essential to the design and success of the proposed project. The applicant's business model dictates a unique, specific design for the site with large open sales auction vehicle storage areas for the flexibility of movement and parking storage of vehicles. The literal interpretation and enforcement of the terms and provisions of this code would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other parcels of land in the same district and would provide an unnecessary and undue hardship. Staff is not in support of this waiver request because staff believes that there are multiple other car dealerships with similar circumstances that have provided these landscape terminal islands, and that they argued many of the same contentions as CarMax, but ultimately decided to provide the striping and terminal islands. Furthermore, Section 2-7528, Subpart C, Landscape and Site Treatment outlines the review criteria for landscape plans. There are 8 review criteria that staff bases their evaluation and ultimately a recommendation on. Staff contends that excuse me, the 2.6 acre asphalt parking field does not meet 3 of the review criteria for landscape plans, and it's shown here on this slide, and that the proposed parking field is void of any landscaping which does not promote an inviting and stable appearance. That's criteria 2. And a morphing grouping of vehicles does not promote a stable appearance. It is void of any landscaping to provide shade, which is criteria 3. And it's void of trees and shrubs and paved areas. That's criteria 5. And therefore, staff is recommending denial of this application. This is a slide showing CarMax's neighbor to the east, their vehicle storage area with the striped parking stalls and terminal islands here. This slide shows CarMax and the vehicle storage area that was previously site planned and constructed that included the terminal islands and landscape islands every 10 spaces. The Planning and Zoning Commission considered this item on August 14, 2023 and recommended denial by a vote of 3-2 with Commissioner Lauren McClellan and alternate 1 Kara Derry dissenting. And with that being said, Mayor, I'll turn the floor back over to you. Thank you.
Okay, this picture you have up, I'm not, what is this showing us again?
So this is the CarMax, the current CarMax.
Okay,
This is the area that they were wanting to put the 2.6 acre parking field, asphalt field. And so this
okay.
is their inventory area currently. And this demonstrates that they have used these terminal islands and landscape islands in their inventory areas in the past. And this is the one that's at United, this is Alpaca Ford, where they have the terminal islands and the inventory spaces.
So you're saying that they have done them previously, now they want to expand the parking area and not do them?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. The applicant like to make comments?
Hi, yes, I have a presentation, if you don't mind. I would like to explain the request in a little bit more detail. I think if I can share my screen and put it in presentation mode here. Okay, first of all, thank you very much for having us this evening. It's a pleasure to be here. For the record, Christina Belenke of Dunning, Miskell, and Backman. We also have our team that consists of a CarMax representative, the project manager for CarMax, our civil engineers, and our landscape architect that can all help answer any questions that you may have. So the first application that's before you right now is for 2 landscape waivers to eliminate the single terminal islands and allow for the required plantings in the adjacent landscape areas and to eliminate double terminal islands. And before we get into that, I do want to pass it off to CarMax to just explain a little bit more about their company and their operational needs.
Okay.
Thank you and good evening. My name is Brian Pulsifer. I'm part of CarMax's Design and Development Group out of Richmond, Virginia. If you're unfamiliar with CarMax, we're the nation's largest retailer of used vehicles. We have over 240 stores nationwide. Last year, we sold over 800,000 retail units, and that's not even including the wholesale units that we sold as well. We've been in business for 30 years as of this year. So CarMax operates a little differently than other dealerships. What we've done since our inception is cater to the associate and the customer experience. The last 19 years in a row, we've been Fortune 100 top places to work. So our associate engagement is very high and high on our list. Also, it's from the customer standpoint, we cater everything to our customer, from how we design our buildings and our parking lots to how we have our, back from the original inception, our no haggle pricing. So everything is catered to our customer and associate experience. We're also very involved in our communities and nonprofit organizations. We have a couple national partners, but we also allow our associates who have passion projects and local organizations, we allow them to get involved. And so actually as of yesterday, we passed the $100 million mark for donations. Just a quick overview of what we have out on on site right now. So a project that we completed a few years ago, we have our sales building and small service building. We also have three distinct parking areas out there. So on the bottom side, see my cursor. Anyway, on the south side is our sales display area, which those are the inventory retail vehicles to be sold that customers and associates can come out and view those vehicles. On the top left side is our public parking area. So that's for customers and associates that they can pull in there and park. That's our only publicly accessible parking lot. So a customer cannot come into the sales display area accidentally with their vehicle. And on the top right in the dark blue is our current, what we call work in progress. It's our back of house operations. That's where we stack and stage vehicles that are going to be going to service or that are waiting to go in the sales display lot. That is currently not striped, and landscaping has been provided on the outside of that perimeter. Both the back of house operation in the dark blue and then the sales display are both security areas. So they are either guardrailed or fenced off, and they also have gates to access. So what we're looking to do with our expansion is to expand that back of house operation. So we currently have the no striping and the landscaping on the outside. We're looking to expand that area and also provide additional public parking, which would be the customer and associate parking, and then a wholesale operations building. So a little bit about the need. The last couple of years, we've implemented our instant offer tool, which you as a customer, if you're looking to sell your vehicle, you can plug in your VIN number online and we'll give you an instant cash offer valid for 7 days. Since we've implemented that tool, we've been buying a lot of vehicles and we don't see that slowing down soon. So for Royal Palm and a lot of our stores nationwide, we are in need of space for those vehicles. So that is one need for the expansion area. Now we also were approved previously for the auction use, our wholesale use, so we want to turn on our business operation, our auction operation here. So with that, these cars that we're buying, they'll either, when we get them inspected from our service associates, they'll either meet our retail requirements, go back onto the retail lot for the public to purchase, or they will go to our wholesale auction. So our wholesale auction is for invited dealers only. It is not open to the public, and it is held on a weekly basis, typically 1 day a week toward the beginning of the week, and it lasts a couple hours. So part of that operation and the need for the no striping and pushing landscaping to the edge, again, we're not reducing any landscaping, we're actually increasing the landscaping, we're just moving the location of it. It really helps our operation because depending on the inventory that we buy, we may stage those vehicles in different manners. So some might be going to service, and we might have a few cars that are going to be doing oil changes or tire rotations. Some might have some paint touch-ups. Depending on the inventory, we will stage and stack those vehicles in different areas. One other thing with the landscaping, pushing into the edge provides a better buffer from this area, from this back of house operation. And also what it does is it helps from a maintenance standpoint. We can now have maintenance operations for landscaping outside of our secure area, so we don't have to bring them into our secured area, and also helps prevent dings and dents from equipment being around our inventory. So that's just a little bit about what we have currently today and what we're looking to put on site in the future.
Good evening. And I just want to make sure we're very clear about what we are asking for. As Brian alluded to, we have kind of 3 distinct lots today with the public parking, the upper left-hand corner, the sales display along the southern side, and that staging or work in progress area kind of to the northeast. A majority of what this expansion is an expansion to that staging area. It's all back of house, all not open to the general public, all screened from the general public. It's CarMax's work area. And so, yes, we have provided landscape islands in certain areas of phase 1 in the public parking lot, in the sales display area. Those public facing areas, we've done it in the past. We're happy to provide that landscaping there. Where we are providing additional public parking space along the north side of the site, we are providing the required landscaping in those areas. Again, happy to meet code in those areas. It is just that staging area, that non-public area where we are not providing it. We are just pushing it to the perimeter to really provide a good visual screen, so that you can't even see into that area. That's the intent of what we're doing today.
Okay, thank you. And just a couple additional points while we're talking about the property history in Phase 1 versus Phase 2. So this site was initially annexed into the village in 1988 and sat vacant for 30 years. 30 years until CarMax ultimately came in 2018 with their applications for some development. And that is because there is tough visibility to the site for commercial uses. It is a commercial zoning district. It has a commercial land use. But when you're coming in from Southern Boulevard over the overpass down, westward, you really don't see the property until you're right there. You don't see it coming down the overpass. It's obstructed by trees and landscape materials, and it's just difficult in terms of visibility. That's why, unfortunately, no commercial business was able to find a successful tenant or user for this property within 30 years. CarMax has come through. The auction component was contemplated in 2018 and was approved through a special exception. So again, we are trying to implement that auction component now. You heard that it is only an auction for invited dealers, and to even elaborate on the public component, even those visiting the auction are not allowed in the back of house staging area. That is only for CarMax employees and CarMax employees that are specifically trained for, the vehicle operations to get these vehicles ready for their next stage, whatever it may be. One thing CarMax, has a lot of accolades behind them. One of them is in terms of training their employees. They've been recognized as one of the best companies out there in terms of training. They want to ensure the safety of their employees. They want to ensure, that their customers are safe as well. And that's why this area is so secure and only accessible to those trained to operate and maneuver these vehicles.
Okay.
And so Bradford showed this graphic. This is kind of separated and in color so you can see this visual a little bit better. So the brown hatched areas are the internal landscape islands that would be required. This is if it was striped as a traditional parking lot, which unfortunately for the needs of CarMax, just doesn't work for them operationally.
Why?
One thing that
Why does it not work operationally? I really don't see the issue here.
So and I don't know, maybe if John or Brian want to speak to this, but
As I was mentioning earlier, we stage and stack vehicles differently based on different
I don't see anything here that stops you from doing what you're talking about doing. And quite frankly, I don't know why you went into this context about how many years it's been vacant. One of the reasons why that property was vacant so long is because we had many developers wanting to rezone this land here, and we said no, we want it to be used for the way it's zoned. That's the primary reason why it was that vacant for that long. Okay? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, so we typically stack vehicles more than just two back to back. We stack them. We can stack them up to about 6 back to back because this isn't open to the public. We don't have customers coming in here and grabbing vehicles. So
Okay.
we have associates coming in there and maneuvering the vehicles in a certain manner to go to service operations or to go through the auction building for auction day. So with the striping, it limits our space. We have this.
It
like I said,
limits your space. There's a lot of asphalt here. Really? Come on.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let me ask a question. I want to clarify something. They keep using this term, it's closed to the public. How is that addressed in our ordinance?
Okay, so within the site plan presentation that I have, I've got 2 criterias that our code says that it shall be designed to promote safe pedestrian traffic and vehicular traffic. Our code does not distinguish between a pedestrian that works for CarMax or a pedestrian that is from the general public or an auction house. So our code does not distinguish. It is pedestrian. It is designed to protect those pedestrians in these areas, no matter who you are and who you work for.
All right, I just wanted clarification on that because that's a terminology you've used for your presentation. I want to put that in the right context for everyone to understand what our code actually says versus what it is you'd like to be able to do, okay? You can continue if you have more comments.
If I may, so as Brian was saying, obviously, this is CarMax's back of house area. It's where they stage vehicles, where they're awaiting these different paths on site. And, you know, whether those are awaiting auction or awaiting service or awaiting placement on the sales lot or awaiting inspection after purchase, you know, there's a multitude of routes where these cars could go on. The mix and number of those cars, they kind of group them together as they come in, and the mix of them is constantly changing and ebbing and flowing. So again, with this being a back of house area, they want to maintain maximum flexibility in how they arrange those cars. A few more points on the landscape islands. Again, because it's not open to the public, CarMax wants that area screened. They don't want anybody seeing into that area. So again, we're taking that landscaping and putting it on the perimeter to prevent folks seeing in. Having landscaping in that area also does provide certain maintenance challenges in terms of getting landscape crews in there into the secured area, you know, weed eating, trimming trees, birds coming in, all things that don't help keep cars clean and keep cars, you know, scratch free and all that kind of stuff. So again, at all their locations across the country, they do have these back of house staging areas, which are totally separated from the public areas and screened from the public. And in those sites across the country, they've got about 240 locations. They have these staging areas where they just have it open. Obviously, we want it to be safe. We're happy to provide, fire access lanes through there to make sure that there's always a clear fire lane through that area. And additionally, you know, if we need to define it a little further and provide a few more drive aisles and certain other paths through that area to aid in kind of the organization, if it would make staff feel better and council feel better in terms of the organization of vehicles, we have an alternative plan that could show that additional drive lane through there, maybe not necessarily required by fire, but just for organizational purposes if necessary. Again, the main point is that we want that landscaping to be pushed to the outside and not be within the secured area for maintenance purposes and to provide maximum screening from the outside looking in. And do we want to show that?
Yeah, so just quickly, to show you, we're not trying to skirt the landscape requirements. We're not trying to provide less than what would be required by the code. This graphic, if it was a traditional parking lot striping, we would be required 8,160 square feet of green space. By pushing it out to the perimeter, we're actually able to pick up more green area and would be providing 11,800 square feet of green area. So it's fairly substantially more green space. And in terms of the landscape plan, you can see there's quite a bit of landscaping focused around the perimeter. And you know, in terms of the code requirements, we are providing more trees than are required by code. The code requirement is for 160 trees, and we have 420 throughout the site. In terms of shrubs in the parking area and along the parking areas, 167 shrubs are required, and we have 570. In terms of the vehicular storage area, 26 trees would be required, where we have 47 trees and 31 palms. So we are not trying to have less landscaping. It's just really the positioning of the landscaping that we're proposing. And just running through a couple renderings for you. This shows some of the landscaping that will be provided when we checked with our landscape architect She said, if anything, we're actually providing more landscaping than is provided and identified in these renderings, but you can see the barrier, the physical barrier that will be provided to the staging area with the mix of trees. This is another view from the kind of internal cross street. This is from Southern Boulevard, so you actually have 2 layers of landscaping. You have landscaping along the southern side of that internal drive aisle road that will become future cross connection to the adjacent commercial plaza, plus additional landscaping on the north side. So you really can't see into that from Southern Boulevard. That's a similar rendering from a different vantage point. And just also for reference, neighboring car dealerships, they may have provided some landscapings, but they're different circumstances as well. If you look at the Ford dealership immediately next door, they actually have 2.53 acres, which is identified in blue, where they have no landscaping. So despite having, the standard drive aisles, they still have 2.53 acres of paved area, and then some because they have their drive aisles and everything on top of that, plus another 1.12 acre area.
I'm missing the point you're trying to make here. Hold on. Where she's talking about, are they compliant?
They have a approved site plan with the terminal islands and the landscaping within those
So they
terminal
did not
islands.
ask for any kind of a waiver
No.
or variance?
No. So into the point of the visual into the site, I just want to make sure and that council is clear that we did just approve a 7-story hotel across the street that will have direct
That'll be
visual
oversight,
influence into the area.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, I just wanted to understand the relationship with the point why you were even bringing that up about another dealership who is compliant. It'd be different if you said to me, here's a dealership that you guys gave the variance to, but
Well,
we didn't give these folks this variance that you were
Not
asking
this
for.
particular waiver. They did have other waivers.
So I don't know why you would bring them up. but
Well, also, you can see
representation.
that even with their standard striping, they're not utilizing it that way. They have rows of 3 cars stacked together, just to show you that dealerships do have different needs. And the auction component on top of that is distinct here, where other dealerships don't have that use. It was a use that was included in the land development regulations in 2018. These dealerships were approved prior to that. So, the auction component is unique to CarMax.
Yeah, but the auction, go ahead, Beth.
Not those areas that she was showing you. Those areas have been approved after that within the last 8 years.
And again, some visuals from other car dealerships showing that, again, they need the flexibility whether their plans are striped appropriately or not. They're not parking that way. They're utilizing the drive aisles. And this is in areas where I was able to drive my personal vehicle through, where they have drive aisles blocked. This isn't a private, secure area that isn't open to customers. So that's just for reference. And then I don't know if Brian or John, you want to speak to this graphic?
Happy to. So after Planning Commission and hearing the feedback there, a lot of it being kind of centered around just how is this area organized and how is it safe for customers? Sorry, not customers because they're not in this area, but safe for people who might be back there, which in this case would be CarMax employees. We talked about how this is standard operating procedure for CarMax, that all their locations have a staging area like this, and that they train their employees appropriately in how to manage those vehicles and navigate within that area. However, if it would appease the village, we would be willing to stripe additional travel lanes through that area just to provide a little bit more organization to that lot to help alleviate that concern. And that's the graphic we're showing here. So we have the fire lane, obviously, and then the 20-foot drive aisles, kind of making that H pattern to the south of that fire lane to provide a little more organization. And we would stripe it according to this.
Anything else?
Happy to answer any questions you
Okay.
have.
All right, let me
Yeah.
go to public comments. Diane, any prior comments on agenda item R9? from the
No,
public?
Mayor.
Ray, we have any hands raised for agenda item R9?
No, Mayor.
Okay, I haven't received any public comment cards on this agenda item. If anyone would like to comment, now would be the time. Seeing none, I'm closing public comment to agenda item R9. Open for questions or comments from council.
Real quick, I appreciate the extra foliage around there, and I understand what you're doing. Actually, I have a quick question for Bradford.
Yes.
Looking at this, in the other rendering where we did have the trees with at the drive aisles on either end, and it from north to south, it looked like you could put 6 cars based on the striping.
Right.
If they were, and your vehicles are constantly moving, is this correct in this area? What if it were striped that way for 6 spaces, but if they had occasionally 10 cars in that aisle, how does that affect how they do business versus our rules?
We don't know because we didn't review that.
Right.
Nor did we
Okay.
review this plan. The
Okay.
plan we reviewed doesn't have this, and we recommended denial of it. And we're only dealing with the landscape waiver right now, which has no their request is no landscaping. So we really didn't review anything that had had striping or landscaping. So that would go through staff review, and it would be dealt with at that time. We don't allow
Back to
20-foot
TSR.
lanes. If it was two-way traffic, they'd be 20. I think they'd be larger lanes. I don't know. That would have to go back to staff for review.
So, what happens then if it's 6 spaces and 10 cars are there? From the village's perspective, is there, because I'm just worried about that. It's obviously it's not code, and they're parking in the aisleways.
I'm not sure
and
that it's
things
not
like that.
coded. Vehicle storage areas, we do have, I think we allowed the Toyota go up to 4 or 5.
3.
3? I thought they had more. So we
3 back, nose to back.
Okay, so we have considered that. We would review this. We would consider it as part of their management plan of it.
So with this potential proposal, how does that affect the agenda item right now?
It's not part of the agenda.
That's right.
It's not. You can't even consider it. I mean, it would go to staff, and the fire department would review it. The police would review it. The engineering would review it, and they might have they might have other comments. But it's not for you to review or comment or approve. Right now, we're only dealing with the landscape waiver. Do we let them not put terminal islands in or not? If they don't have terminal islands, then the next item is the site plan for you to review that would be consistent with no terminal aisles. If you deny the landscape waiver, then it would be up to them, I guess. There'd be no sense in listening to the site plan. But if you did and you denied that, then they would have a year before they can come back and have you reconsider it, or they could pull it.
Unless they pulled it, yeah. Okay.
So we're talking about, on this item, landscaping.
Right.
Right. And one of the reasons landscaping is required is for aesthetics.
Correct.
We're going to wind up with their proposal. We'd wind up with more substantial visual barrier, and aesthetically, I know that's subjective somewhat, better appearance in that we really don't want to be looking into that area, as I understand, as I know the operation, because I've purchased a car from Boynton Beach and from CarMax. I've purchased it from CarMax up in Northern Virginia, so I'm familiar with that operation, and that's been my experience. It's a pretty standard part of their business plan and the way they do business. From a village concern point of view, though, I don't think we want to be able to see into that area. And that's what we're talking about right now. It's a landscaping piece of this, right? So it seems to me we're better off with what they're proposing because we're going to get more vegetation, more of a visual barrier. Also, there's a wall there, right?
Correct.
At the end of the day, that's pretty darn good. Now, you get up to the 7th-story hotel you're talking about, whether it's lined with, in accordance with the standard, with their code, or not, you're going to be looking at a parking lot. I get those rooms oftentimes unless I say, give me a good view. It's a fact of life. It's a reality. I don't know that having it, the terminal landscaping is going to help with that issue, quite frankly. I mean, not to me, it doesn't matter. It seems to me we're better off because we get more of a visual barrier here, which I think is what I'm really more interested in, because I don't want to be looking into that area. Now, it doesn't mean I want crazy stuff going on inside that area. It just means visually, I don't know how much more pleasing it would be to see it lined up or not lined up. That's a lot of cars. It's a big parking lot. And if you want to see an example of it, go next to the fairgrounds. There is an area just like that, which is in a wholesale lot operated pretty much the way it sits. Only limited people can get into it. So vegetation-wise, landscaping-wise, I'm okay with what they're proposing.
What you're describing though is an opinion about there'd be more of a buffer because of that. That may be true the year they plant it. I don't know that that's true 5 years down the road, because our landscape buffers that are required, they do mature and they do fill those areas up, and the landscaping does touch. It might not do it when you first plant it, but it will over time. Obviously, when this is first planted, with having more than our code requires in those areas, it would be more dense at the beginning. But I don't know over the long haul whether having it spread throughout the parking lot and around the perimeter wouldn't be more coverage after it's somewhat more mature.
But we do have a wall there, right?
It's a 6-foot wall.
Well, just because the landscape waiver doesn't have anything to do with the perimeter and whether you can see in or out of the parking lot. The landscape waiver is they want to push everything outside.
Sure.
So you're going to still see what's in there. That's not, so that's what I'm saying is the point that you're making now is not that, oh, let's do it because we don't want to see inside and put it out there. The landscape waivers, they want to push more of it out. They don't want it in the interior. So you're still going to be able, you still have that in there. So, yeah,
Can I address that?
go right ahead.
So what I'm talking about though is the intent for having landscaping as the code requires. It's a visual thing. That's what it is. And in most cases, we're trying to provide a visual barrier to something that aesthetically isn't all that pleasing. And it seems to me we would be better off with the vegetation pushed out than we would having it sitting on the inside. You're not going to be able to see very well anyway because you've got a wall there. That's the main thing. And again, if it allows the normal operation, the normal business approach that CarMax uses, then it's supportive of.
Well, I think what you're asking is for the landscape waiver outside of there so you can move the cars around more frequently and easier.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. We're just, again, not asking you to do any less landscaping. In fact, we're doing more. We're doing that equivalent amount just around the perimeter. So from the outside looking in, you're looking at the landscaping. And yes, there is a 6-foot tall block wall there. Any landscaping on the inside would be, at least partially blocked from the outside looking in by that wall. So we're just kind of pulling that all to the outside of that wall, all to the outside of that secured area, to have it look as visually pleasing as possible from the outside looking in.
From a 6-foot or a 7-foot hotel, the visual, seven-story hotel, the visual looking down is so much more pleasing when you have the landscape at the ends and it's filling that lot versus just the perimeter.
Any other comments? Go ahead.
So if I understand what's going on here, basically we're taking the landscaping that's within the parking lot and pushing it to the exterior. Does that create more parking spaces? I mean, I heard you say that the maintenance and keeping the car clean and those things are the basis for it, but does it have anything other to do, or is there an opportunity for more parking spaces or more to put more cars in there is basically what I'm asking. Will this put more cars in there or allow you to put more cars in there if those landscaping requirements are pushed to the outside? Or is it going to be the exact same number and everything will be exactly the same except for the way ultimately will be designed and structured? Is that the goal? Because I know what I heard from the presentation was the goal is, look, we've we've got to maintain these things. We've got to get people in an area that we don't want them into, which I understand, but I'm trying to see what the end goal of that, because in my perspective, that doesn't seem like such a big deal. And as Jan pointed out, and then the village manager, yeah, you want trees to grow up and things to look pretty, and I I understand that, and that's the purpose of this ordinance. We want prettiness, but
Yeah. So I think to answer your question as I understood it, not having the islands within that area from an operational standpoint make things a lot easier. That's just their experience from their stores across the country where, it's a pain to get people in there and maintain them, and you get leaves dropping off of trees and trimmings and weed eaters throwing up rocks, hitting cars and doing all that kind of stuff. They prefer, since
basically
the
price
open to the public,
the price of having pretty is something that
But
you
again,
don't want to
that's-
bear. Pretty aesthetic, whatever.
right. But again, that's all area that's behind the wall. So we're just taking that and putting it on the outside edge of the wall. In terms of the number of vehicles, one more thing on the operational side. Just it does make it easier to move vehicles around and group them different ways day to day. You might have one day where your little pod of vehicles that are awaiting auction is very big right before the day when we're going to have that auction, and they've got those off in one corner, and then the next day that they're all gone, but you've got a larger group of vehicles that are awaiting service, and they're kind of grouped in different areas of that staging area. So just providing maximum flexibility to move those shifting vehicles around is another reason operationally why they don't want to have those islands there. And in terms of the number of vehicles, what we did with this plan, so again, we put it all on the outside and kind of pulled the perimeters in to allow that extra space on the outside. If we were to put islands on the inside, we would pull it all from the outside and expand that perimeter of the paved area to put the islands back in the inside. So the equivalent amount of paved area would remain the same. Number of vehicles, theoretically parked would remain the same. It's just,
Okay, so basically the requirements of the code are, from my understanding, is just impeding how you can allocate and move within the area. And that's the benefit to pushing them to the outside.
from our side, and aesthetic. Again, putting
Okay.
that landscape on the outside looking in,
Right.
just to provide a more
Okay.
thorough screen than
Thank
code
you.
minimum. Yes.
You have another comment?
I was just going to say, so it is a matter of providing you the flexibility to be able to line up vehicles in a variety of ways. Whereas when you start putting in terminal, what do we call these things? Terminal islands, you are restricted, and consequently you're not able to line them up and mix them and match them in a way that you want. And again, I keep looking at, well, why did we want that? What was the intent? And the intent in my mind was it's the aesthetics value of having shrubbery to break up what otherwise might be stark. Again, not being able to see into it except from the 7th floor or 6th floor, whatever it happens to be from the hotel. My main concern would be ground level kind of a thing, at worst, up on top of the overpass, I suppose. So I understand what you're asking for. I think I understand why you're asking for it. And it seemed to me we might be better off with more landscaping on the outer part. And again, we got a 6-foot wall.
Jan?
Yeah, I'm curious. You mentioned that this lot is going to be back of the house. There's nobody that goes in there. But then you mentioned dealers go in there for auctions. So really, those aren't your staff people. So how many dealers will go in on any auction day?
So I'm able to pull the. We have my screen again. Okay. Looking for the overall site plan. I apologize.
It's okay.
Backwards. All right, there we go. Okay. northern edge of the site here is all an expansion of public parking area, customer and employee parking area, and then the building where the auctions are held, that's this building here. So it's directly adjacent to that. So the idea is that folks can park up here and come into this building directly from that public parking area, and then the auction building has several pass-through bays where auction attendees can view the vehicles as they come through. Right. The associates will pull it through that.
I see.
And that entire area is secured. You cannot get in there except through limited access, right? That's the idea.
Yeah, that 6 foot tall wall goes all the way around that staging or work in progress area, however you want to refer to it. And then vehicular access is controlled via arm gates. There's one here from the north side that would restrict vehicular access to authorized personnel only.
I don't see a 6-foot wall on this plan.
So in the picture, but
Is
I can't
the
see it.
perimeter of this area I'm tracing with my cursor?
Yeah, that's where the wall would be?
Correct.
You had an artist rendering that showed it, right?
Yes. I will flip back to that.
There it is.
Apologies. Right. Yeah, and the wall is, again, in addition to what code required minimum is. Again, we showed that Ford dealership next door, and the thinking behind that, and if I want to make the point of showing that clear. That's used for similar purposes as to what CarMax is proposing here. It's a large paved area. It does have landscape islands around the perimeter, but it's effectively, 2.5 acres of paved area with landscaping around the perimeter. It's pretty much exactly what we're proposing here, except for we also have a wall and we have more landscaping around the perimeter. And you can't see in from the outside.
But they're compliant with our requirements. So
And if it's striping that makes a difference, again, we're happy to do that.
Are they compliant or not? They have the islands where they're supposed to be?
No.
That,
No, sir.
The Ford dealership?
And I was in my next presentation with the staff report. It was further justifying the reasons for these terminal landscape islands. And that is to, and if you would like me to jump into that, I'd be more than happy to, but it more defines the space and the rows. It's not just the landscaping.
And we're happy to provide, I have up on the screen here again, striping to provide more organization in that area. But this box, there is not a single tree within this box I'm outlining here. There are trees around the perimeter, but again, it's a paved area with no landscaping internal to it, and trees around the perimeter of this box here. And
It
again, it's similar to
defines
what
the
we're
terminus
proposing
of the
here.
row.
Say that again?
Say it.
It defines the terminus of the row of parking spaces.
So you create lanes.
When we
Right.
wrote this code and separated it from the vehicle parking area and shopping centers and other things, the things we took out was having that landscape island every 10 parking places. So that's why you have a longer row there. And we also took out the perpendicular landscape islands between the cars so that you could line them up more than two and could drive through. So we changed our code from a regular parking lot to allow these storage areas, and what we left in there was you're going to have terminal islands. That's it. And yeah, some are bigger than others, some are smaller.
But this is what we expect them to do.
Yes.
Okay.
I think at a high level, the difference between this plan and ours is we have a wall that goes around that secures our area. If we pull up the wall, then all that's accessible to the public, and then we could have the terminal islands where we're placing.
You putting
them
the
now.
wall up with your choice. It wasn't something we asked you to do. So,
Exactly.
okay, anybody else have any more questions, comments?
Yeah, just one more.
Go ahead.
So, I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing that does the Ford dealership do an auction? Do they do this operation? Okay, so this is a different
Well,
operation.
they do have areas where they store vehicles, and that's exactly what this place is going
They
to be.
store it, but they don't actually have an auto auction, a wholesale auto auction. And so it's a different set of requirements, basically, that they're trying to.
We don't know that.
I-
They don't have a special.
that was my question.
I don't know. This area has been used for three things: for preparation for cars to go on the lot to be sold, preparation for cars to go to the auction, and for cars to be shipped out. Storage for cars to be shipped out. Does the Ford dealership use these areas to store cars to be shipped out? Yes. Do they use cars to store to prepare to go to the sales area to be sold? Yes. Do they auction within the site? We don't know that. On the other dealerships, I don't know that.
If I may, we've certainly heard and understood a lot of the comments that have been made this evening by the council. If you would allow us the opportunity to further review and come back to you at a later date, potentially with some modifications that might address some of the comments that were raised tonight, we would like that opportunity.
So you're asking to pull it right now? You want to pull
Correct.
this with the
And,
agenda?
and come back, work with staff towards potentially an alternate plan.
Maddie,
and
can
come
we
back
do
at a
that? Do we
later
have to
date.
have a time certain?
You can do that. In order to avoid further legal advertising, you'd need to set it for postpone to a time certain. But again, if it has to go back through TSR, that may be more than a month's time. So it may be just more appropriate to table and
Table it.
the applicant re-advertise
Then they
at
can
their
go back.
expense later. Yes, sir.
If I may make a suggestion, and our village code addresses something of this nature, it would be a postponement to revert the application back to TSR, and then the applicant would have to pay for re-advertisements for these meetings.
Is that what you're asking for?
That would be fine, yes.
Okay.
Is that a more expedient process than pulling it all together?
It's the only way
That is the process of pulling it.
Okay, gotcha.
they can take that path. Do I need a consensus or?
Oh, you need a motion. Motion.
So I look for a motion if someone can state
Well,
what was.
wait a second. Is it, sorry, one more second. Is it regular agenda item number 9 and 10?
My understanding was both, right?
I would like
Yeah.
to have the opportunity to look back at both. Thank you.
Are we talking about tabling it?
Tabling and then go to TSR.
I think the motion would be to postpone to resend it back to TSR, technical staff review, and then
Okay.
at whatever point they're through that process and certified, they'll come back to you and re-advertise at their expense.
Don't have to say that whole thing.
No, sir.
A motion.
But handle R9 first, because R10 hasn't been read into the record yet.
So we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
He's
gonna
about
make
to
it.
make one, I think.
I'll make a motion to postpone and have this, R9 sent back to TSR.
Or 9 and 10?
No, R9 just now.
One at a time, right?
Second.
So what happens to 10?
We're going to go to 10
It needs to
next.
get read into the
I do
record,
it
and then the same
separately?
thing will happen. Yes, sir.
Got it. Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no opposed. Diane, let the record show that the new motion for tabling agenda item R9 is passed 5-0. Now we have agenda item R10. And I still need to read that in the record. Then public hearing to consider application number 22-71, an application by Centerpoint Integrated Solutions, and adoption of resolution 23-28, confirming the council's action. The applicant is seeking site plan and architectural approval in order to construct a standalone building which will be utilized for vehicle auction use for property located 10501 Southern Boulevard. Were they sworn in already for this, Matt?
Yes, and if their request is a similar postponement, that procedural step is not necessary.
That is your request?
Yes,
Similar
please.
postponement, okay. With that,
Same village staff, we have to do disclosures, right? Or
You
do we
don't.
do
If it's
them
just
for
being
both?
postponed, you don't need to do those.
so I'll look for a motion. Postponement.
A motion to postpone and return to TSR.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no opposed. Diane, let the record show that agenda item R10 was also moved to go back to TSR.
Thank you very much for your time this evening and your
Okay.
comments. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. We have agenda item R11, which is an appointment of one regular member to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a term ending March 2024, and one alternate member to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a term ending March 2025. Jeff, you are?
It's me.
I'm sorry.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Kara Derry, who currently serves as alternate number 1, to the regular seat with a term expiring in March 2024, and move and appoint Kamara Williams, who currently serves as alternate 2, to the alternate 1 seat with a term expiring March 2025.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no opposed. Let the record show agenda item R11 was approved 5-0. Mr. Recchio, before you leave, can you come front and center, please? I'm not gonna let you get out of here. This is his last. Don't
That's
say
my
that.
bedtime. So what?
Be prepared to explain yourself. Why are you retiring?
He's here for the.
He moved it after the 19th, so he can be at our October.
I thought it was before the meeting though, because you. So you moved it again? This is a moving target.
Well, now
Okay.
you got to show up to the
Now
next
you got to
meeting.
show up to the 19th. All right, so
Oh, I don't think he's
we're-
adjourned yet. No, he has not, Diane.
we'll give you a bye until the 19th. And you must come and address this council about what are you doing retiring? Okay? With that said, we're adjourned tonight.
You got time to prepare.